Hare Krishna. Welcome back, everybody, to the live studios. Only this time, we are in New Badrik Ashram, the Denver Yatra, and we're in Srila Prabhupada's library, which is a part of the house that Srila Prabhupada stayed in, and he's just in the next room with his full deity form sitting behind his desk, the same desk that he sat in when he visited New Badrik Ashram. I think it was 75.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. We have the authority, the voice of authority. Yes. Welcome back, everyone, from all over the place. I'm just announcing this to the assembled devotees here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 devotees, 15 including me. 15 devotees. And we've just gone over the 600 mark in terms of followers.
Sure.
Yes. And we've had views up to 1,400. So our intense hankering to spread the taste for hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, especially, but all of Prabhupada's books, is coming to pass by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and all of his sincere followers. Thank you very much. Okay. As we usually do, we're going to read the beautiful prayer, glorification of Srimad-Bhagavatam by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who is the senior disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. First we have our director, Rasika Shirmani, who's running around with his helper, Bhakta Nick, turning off all the lights just to make sure that I won't be seen so I won't spoil everyone's Christmas.
It's to make sure you have more light.
I'm just joking. In case you didn't notice. Okay. It goes like this. Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvandoditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. We have, devotees falling on the floor already, dropping things. Their ecstasy knows no bounds. I don't know what's going to happen by the time we get to the end. Paramamanda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. Some people have already memorized this. I get so emotional I have to read it off of a page, otherwise I forget. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Anandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. A sadhu, sadhuta dayan, atini chochata kara, hanamunchikadachin mam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. And there Srila Sanatana Goswami is removing all of our excuses. Even if we think we're the most fallen, doesn't disqualify us. As a matter of fact, it makes us qualified. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached the 6th chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is extremely auspicious. It's the conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva, in which Narada is explaining to Vyasadeva what he should do, that he's feeling after feeling unfulfilled, after compiling so much literary work that nobody else has ever done in the history of the universe. Hare Krishna. We are beginning with text number 28. 1628. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work, karma, stopped. Purport. Informed by the personality of Godhead that he would be awarded a transcendental body befitting the Lord's association, Narada got his spiritual body as soon as he quitted his material body. This transcendental body is free from material affinity and invested with the 3 primary transcendental qualities, namely eternity, freedom from material modes, and freedom from reactions of fruitive activities. The material body is always afflicted with the lack of these 3 qualities. A devotee's body becomes at once surcharged with the transcendental qualities as soon as he is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. It acts like a magnetic influence of a touchstone upon iron. The influence of transcendental devotional service is like that. Therefore, change of the body means stoppage of the reaction of the 3 qualitative modes of material nature upon the pure devotee. There are many instances of this in the revealed scriptures. Dhruva Maharaja and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees were able to see the personality of Godhead face to face, apparently in the same body. This means that the quality of a devotee's body changes from material to transcendence. That is the opinion of the authorized Goswamis via the authentic scriptures. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that beginning from the Indra Gopa germ up to the great Indra, king of heaven, all living beings are subjected to the law of karma and are bound to suffer and enjoy the fruitive results of their own work. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Authority, the personality of Godhead. Text 29. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements, and I also entered his breathing. Purport. So this was a previous creation, not just a previous life. Purport. Narada is known as the son of Brahma, as Lord Krishna is known as the son of Vasudeva. The personality of Godhead and his liberated devotees, like Narada, appear in the material world by the same process. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the birth and activities of the Lord are all transcendental. Therefore, according to authorized opinion, the birth of Narada as the son of Brahma is also a transcendental pastime. His appearance and disappearance are practically on the same level as that of the Lord. The Lord and his devotees are therefore simultaneously one and different as spiritual entities. They belong to the same category of transcendence. Text 30. After 4,300,000,000 solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. This means he became the mind-born son of Lord Brahma. There were 10 mind-born sons of Lord Brahma in the very beginning of each creation. Okay, purport. The duration of a day of the life of Brahma is 4,320,000,000 solar years. This is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita. And for this same period, Brahmaji rests at night in Yoga Nidra within the body of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, the generator of Brahma. Thus, after the sleeping period of Brahma, when there is again creation by the will of the Lord through the agency of Brahma, all the great rishis again appear from different parts of the transcendental body, and Narada also appears. This means that Narada appears in the same transcendental body, just as a man awakes from sleep in the same body. Sri Narada is eternally free to move in all parts of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned beings. Text 31. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there are three divisions of the material spheres, namely the Urdhvaloka, topmost planets, Madhyaloka, midway planets, and Adholoka, downward planets. Beyond the Urdhvaloka planets, that is to say, above the Brahmaloka, are the material coverings of the universes, and above that is the spiritual sky, which is unlimited in expansion, containing unlimited, self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets, inhabited by God himself, along with his associates, who are all eternally liberated living entities. Sri Narada Muni could enter all these planets in both the material and spiritual spheres without restriction, as much as the Almighty Lord is free to move personally in any part of his creation. In the material world, the living beings are influenced by the three material modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But Sri Narada Muni is transcendental to all these material modes, and thus he can travel everywhere, unrestricted. He is a liberated spaceman. The causeless mercy of Lord Vishnu is unparalleled, and such mercy is perceived by the devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, the devotees never fall down, but the materialists, that is, the fruitive workers and the speculative philosophers, do fall down, being forced by the respective modes of nature. The rishis, as above mentioned, cannot enter into the transcendental world like Narada. This fact is disclosed in the Nrsimha Purana Rishis like Marichi are authorities in fruitive work, and rishis like Sanaka and Sanatana are authorities in philosophical speculations. But Sri Narada Muni is the prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord. All the great authorities of the devotional service of your Lord, following the footsteps of Narada Muni in the order of the Narada Bhakti Sutra, and therefore all the devotees of your Lord are unhesitatingly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. Text 32. And thus I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called the veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. Purport. The musical stringed instrument called the veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Krishna, by Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana, and this is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. I'll read that again. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental, without a tinge of material inebriety. The 7 singing meters, namely Sa, Shadja, Ri, Rishabha, Ga, Gandhara, Ma, Madhyama, Pa, Panchama, Dha, Daivata, and Ni, Nishada, are also transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Sri Narada Deva is always fulfilling his obligation to the Lord for his gift of the instrument, and thus he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories, and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. Following in the footsteps of Srila Narada Muni, a self-realized soul in the material world also properly uses the sound meters, namely Shari, Ga, Ma, etc., in the service of the Lord by constantly singing his glories. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:14, the Mahatmas, or great souls, have no business in life except singing the transcendental glories of the Lord, following in the footsteps of Srila Narada Dev, which is, by the way, what we're doing right now. If you read this Bhagavatam aloud like this, either just reading it, or you can even sing it, whatever, you get the same benefit as Narada's Veena. Text 33. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. Purport. The absolute personality of Godhead is not different from his transcendental name, form, pastimes, and the sound vibrations thereof. As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, and activities of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Therefore, a pure devotee who is related with the Lord in transcendental loving service can experience the presence of the Lord at every moment. It is a natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others. That is a natural instinct. And the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology, because psychological characteristics visible in the individual souls are but reflections of the same psychology in the Absolute Lord. The only difference is that the Lord is the greatest personality of all and absolute in all his affairs. If therefore the Lord is attracted by the pure devotees' chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing. Since he is absolute, he can appear himself in the picture of his glorification. The two things being identical, Srila Narada chants the glorification of the Lord not for his personal benefit, but because the glorifications are identical with the Lord. Narada Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. When we finished editing the Srimad-Bhagavatam with Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu's commentary, that's Sanatana Goswami's commentary, but paraphrased by Gopi in English prose. The foreword the person we selected to do the foreword was Dr. Joseph O'Connell, who at the time was the first seat in the world for Gaudiya Vaishnava scholars in the academy. And in the foreword, when he was checking the English to the Sanskrit, he said something to the effect that the English was so, and the translation and the purport were so poetic that they were not ordinary words, they were book words, or I can't remember exactly how he put it, but it allowed a person to visualize what was going on in the book. So that's the nature of transcendental sound. It actually gives you the ability, just the sound itself gives you the ability, even if you're not advanced enough to see it physically or see a form in your heart, just the sensation of it is enough to give you transcendental experience, in case you didn't notice. Text 34. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nations on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Purport. The symptom of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must be doing something, thinking of something, or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses. But as these things are exercised under the influence of the external, illusory energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full with cares and anxieties. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narada Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artists, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like the gopis and Lakshmis. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descends on the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly men, but at the same time extraordinarily, because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls, so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned soul will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of nations, the source of all miseries. This is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Sri Narada Muni. And if we have the same experience also, and we can have the same experience also, if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord. Text 35. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Purport. Yoga aims at controlling the senses by practice of the mystic process of bodily exercise in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence. One can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narada Muni recommends another method for controlling the senses in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says that devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the senses. In the service of the Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendentally engaged. Thus, there is no chance of their becoming engaged in sense satisfaction. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there's some opportunity for enjoyment, the serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many instances in history, just like Vishwamrita Muni's falling a victim to the beauty of Menaka. But Thakura Haridasa was allured at midnight by the well-dressed Maya, and she still could not induce that great sage into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord, without being tinged with fruitive work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy, is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the systems of yoga and jnana are subordinate to such a process. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with a subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental, but is called mixed devotional service. Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad-Bhagavatam, will gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realization in the next text. Text 36. O Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization, as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction as well. Purport. The process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence has all been duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of Vyasadeva. Narada has explained how the seeds of devotional service were sown by transcendental association, and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness, so much so that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as the blessing of God. and at once he took the opportunity to search out the Lord. A sincere urge for having an interview with the Lord was also granted to him, although it was not possible for anyone to see the Lord with mundane eyes. He also explained how the execution of pure devotional service He also explained how, by execution of pure transcendental service, one can get rid of the fruitive action of accumulated work, and how he transformed his material body into a spiritual one. The spiritual body is alone able to enter into the spiritual realm of the Lord, and no one but a pure devotee is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. All the mysteries of transcendental realization are duly experienced by Narada Muni himself, and therefore, by hearing such an authority, one can have some idea of the results of devotional service, which are hardly delineated even in the original texts of the Vedas. In the Vedas and Upanishads, there are only indirect hints to all this. Nothing is directly explained there, and therefore Srimad-Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all the Vedic trees of literatures. Text 37. Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Purport. Every living being is anxious for full freedom, because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of one planet to another. But a full-fledged, free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person, even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not even. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. Text 38. All glory and success to Srila Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead, and so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. Purport. Sri Narada Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. No one is happy here within the universe, and what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. The illusory energy of the Lord is so strong that even the hog who lives on filthy stools feels happy. No one can be truly happy within the material world. Srila Narada Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitants, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to Godhead. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of that great sage. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. Keep mental notes. Chapter 7. The son of Drona punished. Text 1. Rishi Shaunaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? Purport. In this chapter, the clue for describing Srimad-Bhagavatam is picked up as Maharaj Parikshit is miraculously saved in the womb of his mother. This was caused by Droni, Ashwatthama, Acharya Drona's son, who killed the 5 sons of Draupadi while they were asleep, for which he was punished by Arjuna. Before commencing the great epic, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Sri Vyasadeva realized the whole truth by trance in devotion. I made that point last night, just for those of you who weren't here. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is not actually smriti, it is shruti. There's 2 kinds of transcendental literatures. One is called shruti and the other is called smriti. The shruti is eternal. It's co-eternal with Krishna. It comes from the breathing of Krishna, but it always exists eternally with Krishna. It's not that he's the source of it even. He never claims himself to be the source of it. He says, Vedaishcha sarvar aham eva vedya, Vedanta krit vedavit evachaham. Vedavit, I'm the knower of the Veda. He never says I'm the creator of the Veda. So this is the reason, because Vyasadeva realized the whole truth, means the Srimad-Bhagavatam, by trance in devotion. So I made that point before, that the rishis, of whom Srila Vyasadeva is the paramount, or the most elevated, because he's an incarnation of Krishna himself. He's literary incarnation of God. These rishis, the first Shruta rishis, are able to pull the Vedic hymns, even if they're forgotten, or if they get if they get confused, they can pull them from their meditation, from the ether. And therefore we are assured that we are getting transcendental sound. And the difference between the Shruti, another difference between the Shruti and the Smriti, is that the Shruti has to be repeated exactly as it was originally vibrated. Even the meter, even the inflections in the sound, the different tunes, the different tonalities, they all have to stay exactly the same. And the way they did this in the beginning of the universe was they would have gurukulas of young boys, 5 years old, 5, 6, 7, like that, 8, and they would have many of them, 500, 1,000, sometimes as many as 50,000, and they would have them repeat the mantras, and they didn't know what they were saying. They would just have them repeat the mantras again and again until it was fixed in their minds, because they were very pure in those days. I mean, young babies and young children, especially this age, they absorb things very easily, very quickly. If you think about it, how did you learn your language? There was no teacher with a whiteboard and diagramming sentences and grammatical correctness and this and that. You just listened, and they said things, and then you just listened. You learned. We should be always conscious of that when we're around children, because they pick up everything, you know. So then they would have the sound. And if there were so many, even if some weren't capable of doing it, they would get, you know, the reality from the vast majority of them. And then they would know what to say to the next generation. In that way, the Vedas are, the Shrutis are passed down to us. Now the Smritis, the difference between the Smritis and the Shrutis, they say the same things. They're explaining the same truths. And in a sense, there's no difference. But they appear, the way they appear is from different rishis who write them down. And there are different words that they use to explain exactly the same thing. So here is the proof. And there's other proofs, but this is one mention of Srila Prabhupada in his purports, that before commencing the great epic, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Sri Vyasadeva realized the whole truth by trance in devotion. Text 2. Sri Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Shamyapras. That's where Vaisheshika Prabhu got Shamyapras's name from, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. Purport. For spiritual advancement of knowledge, a suitable place and atmosphere are definitely required. The place on the western bank of the Saraswati is especially suitable for this purpose. And there's the ashrama of Vyasadeva at Shamyapras. Srila Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashrama. An ashrama is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. It does not matter whether the place belongs to a householder or a mendicant. The whole varnashrama system is so designed that each and every status of life is called an ashrama. This means that spiritual culture is the common factor for all. The brahmacharis, the grihastas, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis all belong to the same mission of life, namely realization of the Supreme. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. The difference is a matter of formality on the strength of renunciation. The sannyasis are held in high estimation on the strength of practical renunciation. Text 3. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Purport. Under instructions of his spiritual master, Srila Narada Muni, Vyasadeva concentrated his mind in that transcendental place of meditation. Text 4. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism, and thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Purport. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, only by the process of devotional service. And one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of the absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Sri Narada advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. Srila Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.9, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. In the Upanishads also, it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the glowing Hiranmayena Patrena veil of impersonal Brahman. And when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute can be seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha, or person. The Absolute Personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. The Absolute Personality of Godhead is the perfect person. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the Absolute Person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apashrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is also called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya, or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. And even those who are Atmarama, or fixed in trance, take shelter of this Maya, or internal energy. Devotional service or bhakti yoga is the function of the internal energy. Thus there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy, just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light, even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence, is also an emanation from the Absolute Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Parama Purusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And therefore, and due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him. But he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, feeling, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nations. Thus the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be, because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. So this is a very interesting point, isn't it? Because, as Prabhupada pointed out to us, none of the material elements is conscious. The body is formed of material elements, and therefore, without the consciousness, the eyes can't see. By itself, you take the eye out and point it around, it's not going to see anything. So this means, literally, that in order to see, the soul has to have eyes. In order to feel, the soul has to have skin. In order to hear, the soul has to have ears. So this means that the soul has spiritual body, and the evidence that no one is the same is that none of the bodies are the same. No two bodies are exactly the same. Just look in the room, just watch and look. Each one of us looks completely different. So that's the way it is in the spiritual world. Only here, the individuality is covered by matter, and therefore we have different bodies that look different. But we still have to go through the same process of seeing, digesting, evacuating, all the things we have to, avoid extreme heat, avoid extreme cold, It's very interesting. The external energy. The Lord does not desire that a living entity be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts the thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. But the all-affectionate, Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation. And on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment to the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. This means